Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty chilling, a critical and often fatal flaw in the UK's death investigation system. We're going to look at how one single decision made in a split second can allow a murderer to just walk free.
Let's start with a number that should really stop you in your tracks. A 2015 government audit looked at just 32 deaths that police had initially waved off as non-suspicious. And the result? 10 of them. Nearly a third were later confirmed to be homicides. This isn't just a theory, folks. It's a documented, terrifying reality.
So how does this even happen? Well, it happens because of a fundamental weakness in the system, a concept we're calling the binary gate. It's this one high-stakes decision made by the very first officers on a scene. And if they get that call wrong, a killer's crime can be buried for good.
Okay, let's really get into this. How can one single judgment call be the difference between justice and a perfectly concealed crime?
So picture this. Police arrive at a death scene. Right then and there, they have to make the call. Suspicious or non-suspicious? If it's suspicious, bam, a full forensic investigation kicks into gear, led by a specialist who is trained to find the tiniest clues of a crime. But if it's deemed non-suspicious, the case goes down a completely different and much less rigorous path, to a local coroner and a standard hospital autopsy. That procedure is designed to find a medical cause of death, not to hunt for a killer.
And the scale of this split is, well, it's staggering. Take a look at this. For every 100 postmortems performed in England and Wales, a whopping 98 are the standard, non-suspicious kind. Only 2 get the full forensic investigation. That means the vast majority of deaths are never examined with the level of scrutiny needed to uncover a hidden homicide.
So, what happens when this system fails? The case of serial killer Stephen Port is a tragic and frankly perfect example of the real-world catastrophe that can happen because of this blind spot.
Over a 16-month period, Port murdered 4 young men. He used the same drug, GHB, and left their bodies in nearly identical situations. Yet, time and time again, police made that same fatal call, non-suspicious. They treated them like routine overdoses, allowing a serial killer to literally operate in plain sight. And this explains exactly why those mistakes were so easy to make. A standard autopsy just isn't built to find the signs of a clever murder. It often misses the detailed neck dissection you need to rule out strangulation in a hanging, and in Port's case, the specific toxicology test for GHB isn't standard. If you don't know you need to look for it, you will never find it.
So what's really driving these failures? This isn't just about individual error. No, the problem is an outdated investigative toolkit, and it's being made worse by some powerful institutional pressures. Research has pointed to 2 major drivers here. First up, you guessed it, budget pressures. Forensic pathologists are expensive, and there's an institutional reluctance to call them in unless a crime is obvious. Second is something called case closure bias. It's a powerful psychological pull to make the evidence fit the simplest story, like an accidental overdose, just to get the file closed. And here's where it gets really perverse. A victim's vulnerability is often used to justify this bias. If someone had a history with drugs or mental health issues, it's treated like an easy explanation for what happened. Researchers argue for the complete opposite. That vulnerability should raise the alarm, not lower it, because those individuals are the ones most at risk of being victimized.
And a huge piece of this puzzle is that police are often using a tool from 1973 to assess suspected suicides. It's called the Ovenstone criteria, and it was designed for tracking statistics, not for a forensic investigation. It focuses on things a killer can easily fake, like a suicide note, while ignoring what modern data tells us are the real predictors of suicide.
This vulnerability becomes incredibly stark when we shift our focus to deaths linked with domestic abuse. This is a category where that line between suicide and homicide can become dangerously, tragically blurred. The numbers here are just alarming. For the second year in a row, the number of suspected suicides right after a period of domestic abuse has overtaken the number of confirmed homicides by a partner. This raises an urgent question, doesn't it? How many of these suicides are actually something else entirely? And that question gets even more chilling when you look at the research. Leading criminologist Professor Jane Monckton-Smith has found that staging a suicide is the single most common tactic used by abusers to cover up the murder of their partner. Just think about that. It's the most common cover-up, yet these deaths rarely get the forensic deep dive they demand.
So, is this flawed system our only option?
Not at all. A quick look abroad shows us that other countries have found better ways to deal with these really ambiguous deaths. So the UK system forces that choice, suspicious or not. But in the US, many places have a third option, undetermined. It's a crucial holding category that ensures ambiguous deaths get more investigation before being dismissed. And then there's Australia. They have a national database that connects the dots and spots suspicious patterns, like a cluster of similar suicides popping up across different states, something the UK's fragmented system would almost certainly miss.
Okay, with all this evidence pointing to a massive systemic failure, the final question has to be, how do we fix it? How do we build a real pathway for the truth?
The most honest answer is also the most disturbing one. We simply don't know. The system isn't designed to find its own mistakes, so we're left with this ultimate question. How many homicides are being missed every single year? Now, experts argue the solution isn't to treat every single death as a murder. Instead, it's about creating an intermediate pathway for those deaths that are ambiguous or uncertain. This would trigger enhanced forensics without launching a full-blown homicide investigation. You combine that with mandatory checks against domestic abuse databases and a national system to spot patterns, and you could finally close this deadly loophole.
And this analysis leaves us with one final, fundamental question. In a system that's designed to deliver justice and protect all of us, if a death is in any way uncertain, shouldn't the default choice always be to look closer?